They say the quietest secrets inflict the loudest heartbreaks. For Olivia Harrington, 7 months pregnant, the shattered pieces of trust seemed to echo through every corner of her grand suburban home. Rumors whispered behind closed doors that her husband Mark had let his mistress, a mysterious woman named Cassie, move into the guest house right under her nose. Neighbors gossiped, friends turned away, and Olivia realized she was fighting not just for her marriage, but for her unborn child's future. Yet in a twist that left everyone speechless, Olivia had already transferred the deed of the property into her name before anyone else knew. Olivia Harrington gazed out of the expansive living room window, a cooling mug of tea in hand. The afternoon sun cast a warm glow on the rose bushes lining the driveway. Her world on the surface seemed the embodiment of perfection, married to a successful entrepreneur, living in an opulent house in a peaceful neighborhood. But as the wind rustled the leaves, Olivia felt a chill run down her spine, an intuition that perfection had long vanished from the Harrington household. She was almost 7 months pregnant, a delicate time in any woman's life. She should have been carefree, painting pastel shades on the nursery walls, shopping for baby clothes, and trading tips with her best friend Maria Sanchez. Instead, a dark cloud of doubt hovered relentlessly over her. Mark Harrington had always been a man of grand gestures. He arrived in her life 8 years ago like a whirlwind, roses at her doorstep, dinners at high-end restaurants, spontaneous weekend getaways. She was a small-town girl who had moved to the city for college. Mark, older by 6 years, owned a real estate investment firm with offices in multiple states. At first, everything was magical. He noticed her when few men had bothered. He courted her earnestly, proposing with an heirloom ring he claimed had been passed down in his family. Their wedding was lavish, covered in local magazines for the extravagance of its floral designs and the designer bridal gown that Olivia wore. Looking back, Olivia realized the cracks had started appearing during her second year of marriage when Mark began spending more time away. Late-night client meetings, weekend business trips, networking events that ended at suspicious hours. Whenever she voiced concerns, he dismissed them as paranoid. "I'm doing this for us," he often said, a condescending edge creeping into his voice. Over time, Olivia learned to bury her doubts. She replaced the truth with illusions, letting Mark's affectionate moments overshadow the frequent lies. But the illusions started to crumble once she got pregnant. Now her protective maternal instinct was awakened, urging her not to ignore any red flags. Over the past few weeks, the rumors about a woman named Cassie had grown impossible to ignore. It began with a phone call from an old friend, Alice Carmichael, who worked as a receptionist at one of Mark's partner law firms. Alice stumbled upon an internal memo referencing an individual named Cassandra Brooks and a property arrangement involving Mark's name. Alice reached out to Olivia, unsure of the details, but concerned enough to say, "Please look into this. Something isn't right." Her suspicions multiplied when Mark started returning home with the faint smell of perfume that was definitely not hers. Once she found a long auburn hair on the passenger seat of his car. He blamed it on a co-worker hitching a ride, brushing the issue aside as if it were a trivial annoyance. Olivia was not convinced. Then the rumor. Neighbors whispered about a new woman residing in the guest house, though no one had direct confirmation yet. If there really was someone, she appeared to come and go in secret. The fact that this might be happening under her nose was maddening. How could Mark be so brazen as to move a mistress onto their property? Despite her state of emotional turmoil, Olivia had a surprising sense of calm. She felt a swirling pool of rage and heartbreak in her gut, but somehow she was anchored by the child she carried. It was no longer only about her heartbreak. It was about their future. She had to act discreetly. For years, Olivia had allowed Mark to take the lead in their marriage's financial matters. Yet deep down, she'd always had a strong sense of independence. She had some knowledge of the real estate world gleaned from helping Mark with minor tasks in his firm, plus her own small nest egg she'd grown through part-time consultancy work. When she discovered she was pregnant, that dormant spirit of autonomy erupted. The maternal drive to secure her child's future became her primary focus. She started investigating their family assets. Slowly, meticulously, She asked Mark about updating their wills, about the house ownership structure, about the trusts Mark set up for their future child. Mark, perhaps too confident or too dismissive, allowed her partial insight into the property details. He likely never suspected she had the acumen or the courage to do anything significant. So with the help of an old colleague, John Davis, who was now a practicing real estate lawyer, Olivia researched the legalities of transferring deeds and investigating property rights. She realized that while Mark had purchased the property in both their names, he had never updated the official records after their marriage. This subtle discrepancy left an opening. By employing John's guidance and forging Mark's signatures where absolutely necessary, something she never envisioned herself doing, she quietly set about transferring the deed to her name. She planned the entire operation meticulously. The documents were recorded on a day Mark was supposedly too busy to ask questions. It took weeks of carefully timed steps, but eventually, the deed was in her name. She would never have done such a thing if not for her growing suspicions and a desperate need to protect herself and her unborn child. Her heart still pounded at the memory of finalizing those documents. Deceiving her husband felt like stepping into darkness, like crossing a line she'd never thought possible. But in her mind, it was an act of self-preservation. She was pregnant, and the man who was supposed to protect and cherish her might have been setting up an entirely new life with another woman. Olivia wanted a fallback plan. She had no immediate intention to use that leverage, but she felt safer holding it quietly in her back pocket. One gray afternoon, as Olivia returned from a routine prenatal checkup, she parked in the driveway and spotted movement near the guesthouse window. A silhouette female for sure parted the blinds. Olivia's heart clenched. It was no rumor. There truly was someone there. Someone with the audacity to reveal herself in broad daylight. She hesitated in the car. Her mind was a kaleidoscope of swirling emotions, fear, anger, heartbreak, and an oddly serene confidence. She thought of confronting the person right away, but stopped herself. She needed proof, a plan. Rushing blindly could jeopardize everything. Slipping into the house quietly, Olivia made sure not to alert Mark, who was likely in his home office. She peered through the back window that offered a partial view of the guesthouse entrance. A young woman with cascading auburn hair stepped outside, speaking on her phone. Even from afar, she looked glamorous, tall, slender, with a certain air of confidence. If this woman was indeed Cassie, Mark's rumored mistress, then she seemed unapologetically at home. Unable to quell her urge to gather evidence, Olivia grabbed her phone and zoomed in for a photo. The woman turned her face slightly, and Olivia's heart sank. She recognized the face from a business function Mark had dragged her to a year before. Cassie Brooks had been introduced as Mark's junior associate, assisting him on marketing campaigns. Cassie had been charming, too. Charming, always clinging to Mark's elbow. On that day, Olivia brushed aside her jealousy as ridiculous. Now the memory gnawed at her. That evening, Olivia pretended to sleep early, waiting until the house was silent. She rose around midnight, tiptoed through the hallway, and slipped out the back door. Her breath caught in her throat as she gently tested the guesthouse doorknob, locked. She tapped it softly. Moments later, footsteps. The door cracked open, revealing Cassie in an oversized t-shirt, alarm visible in her wide eyes. She seemed too shocked to respond as Olivia walked in uninvited. Inside, the guesthouse smelled of new paint and floral air freshener, contrasting the tension that hung thick in the air. "You must be Cassie," Olivia said, voice steady but laced with quiet fury. Cassie swallowed hard. "Olivia? What are you doing here?" Olivia's gaze flicked to the half-packed boxes, the suitcase near the couch. "I live here," she said, emphasizing each word. "What I don't understand is why you're here." Cassie's hand shook slightly as she set her phone aside. "Mark told me you knew." A humorless laugh escaped Olivia's throat. "He told you I knew. Knew what, that you'd be moving in while I'm still pregnant with his child." Cassie's cheeks reddened and she looked away, her tough veneer cracking. "It's complicated. Mark, he said you two were in the middle of a separation. That you were okay with me staying here temporarily?" A surge of revulsion swept through Olivia. It took everything in her not to scream. "We're not separated. And you're trespassing on my property," she said, stepping forward. Cassie glanced around uncertain. "Mark said—" She paused. "He's still paying the mortgage. I'm staying here with his permission." Olivia grit her teeth. "You may have his permission," she said slowly, "but you don't have mine." With that, she turned and left, slamming the door behind her before Cassie could reply. Inside, Olivia's heart pounded uncontrollably. Mark was weaving a web of lies in every direction, telling Cassie they were separated, telling her the house was half his to do as he pleased. He hadn't counted on her cunning. She felt her unborn baby shift within her, as though giving her a silent reminder of what she had to protect. Olivia confronted Mark the next morning. She chose her words carefully, letting him dig himself deeper into a pit of lies before revealing her cards. She found him in the kitchen sipping coffee and scrolling through his phone. "Mark," she said, unable to hide the tremor in her voice. "I want to talk about Cassie." He stiffened. "What about her? Why is she living in our guest house?" Mark's eyes flickered with panic for a split second before he composed himself. "She needed a place to stay temporarily. I was doing her a favor. She's an employee who fell on hard times." "You expect me to believe that?" Olivia asked, crossing her arms over her bump. "She claimed you told her we were separated." Mark inhaled sharply. "She misunderstood. I said we were having some difficulties. I never used the word separated." For the first time in their marriage, Olivia stared at Mark and felt like she was looking at a stranger. This was the man she'd once adored, who now lied as effortlessly as breathing. She clenched her fists. "She's leaving. Today." "Olivia, calm down. I'm handling this. You've handled enough. I want her gone. She'll be gone when I decide," he shot back, voice icy. "This is my house too, and it's still under my name. I can have anyone stay here I please." It was a knife to Olivia's heart, but also exactly the arrogance she expected. Deciding she wasn't ready to reveal the truth about the deed, she simply turned away. "Think carefully," she said before walking out of the kitchen. "I'm not as naive as I once was." From that moment on, the Harrington household was divided into two warring camps. Mark grew more blatant with his involvement with Cassie. He'd spend evenings down in the guest house, returning late at night, reeking of perfume and alcohol. Olivia found herself retreating into her bedroom, tears of anger and betrayal staining her pillow. Yet she refused to break. Not anymore. She was discovering a sense of strength within that she never knew existed. Her close friends Maria Sanchez and Alice Carmichael became her confidants. They urged her to move out to file for divorce to stay with them. But Olivia resisted. This was her home, her child's future. She refused to be chased away by a conniving mistress or a deceitful husband. In hushed phone calls, she discussed her strategy with John Davis, the lawyer who helped her secure the deed. They agreed that revealing her ownership too early could lead Mark to take drastic measures. "Document everything," John advised. "Build a case for yourself, just in case. Once the baby is born, you'll have additional legal protection for custody and child support." So Olivia waited, gathering evidence. Every suspicious bank statement, every phone call detail, every business transaction Mark made that bled into their personal funds. She told Maria, "I'm collecting puzzle pieces. One day they'll form a complete picture, and that's when I'll strike." Several weeks passed. The tension was suffocating, and the closer Olivia got to her due date, the more she worried about what would happen once she was vulnerable after childbirth. Mark seemed oblivious to her condition, more fixated on keeping Cassie's new life comfortable. He hired gardeners to spruce up the guest house, landscaping interior decorators to rearrange furniture. It was a stab in Olivia's heart every time she saw the additional care he put into Cassie's comfort, while barely acknowledging her own pregnancy pains. Then came a phone call from an unexpected source, Daniel Reeves, Mark's business partner. Olivia had never particularly liked or trusted Daniel. He was cutthroat, often bragging about skirt chasing and partying. Still, his name flashed on her phone screen one afternoon, and curiosity overcame her. "Daniel?" she answered warily. Hi, Olivia," he said, his usual bravado absent. "Listen, I wanted to talk to you about Mark. I know we haven't always gotten along, but I think you deserve to know what's going on." Her heart thumped. "What do you mean?" he exhaled. "Mark and Cassie have been siphoning company funds for months. Personal expenses disguised as business costs. A new diamond necklace labeled as marketing materials, a first-class trip labeled as a client meeting. The board's suspicious. It's not official yet, but if the evidence stands, Mark could face serious legal trouble." For a moment, Olivia was silent. This revelation sent shockwaves through her. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because Mark's also forging your signature on certain documents. I recognized your name on some forms involving property deals, but the signature didn't match your usual style. He's messing with more than just the company's money. This could blow back on you if it's not addressed." Anger and anxiety mingled in Olivia's chest. She tried to steady her breathing, one hand cradling her swollen belly. "Thank you for telling me, Daniel. I'll keep this in mind." Before hanging up, Daniel added, "Look, Mark's in over his head. Cassie's playing him and he's letting her. Watch your back." Olivia felt the ground beneath her shifting. Mark's betrayals extended beyond an affair. He was risking their financial security, forging her name on transactions she knew nothing about. That very evening, she stormed into Mark's office, heart pounding with adrenaline. "We need to talk," she said, shutting the door behind her. He glanced up from his laptop, the glow illuminating his tired, irritated face. "Make it quick. I'm busy." She slammed a folder onto his desk. "Busy forging my signature. Busy draining our finances for your mistress." His eyes flickered. "Where did you get that?" "That's not the question," Olivia snapped. "The question is, how could you do this to me, to your child? You're forging my name on deals I never agreed to." Mark's nostrils flared. He closed his laptop and stood. "Olivia, calm down. You're overreacting. Overreacting. You've lied about everything. You've made a fool of me, Mark, and all I've done is try to keep this family together." He took a step closer, lowering his voice. "You don't know the pressure I'm under. Business is tanking. We need new deals, new capital. Cassie's father has connections." "This is about Cassie's father," she interrupted, mind whirling. Mark ran a hand through his hair, exasperated. "He's a wealthy investor, okay? Cassie promised that if I take care of her, her father will bail us out. The company's on the brink of collapse, and this is a short-term solution. I never meant for it to go this far. I never. So you're risking our marriage, forging my name just for a potential investor bailout?" Olivia's voice wavered, equal parts incredulity and rage. "What about our child? What about me?" He avoided her gaze. "I'm trying to keep everything afloat. You wouldn't understand the complexities of the business." A bitter laugh bubbled from her lips. "I understand more than you think." As she turned to go, he grabbed her arm. "Olivia, don't threaten me. You have no idea how deep this goes." She glared at his hand until he released her. "You're the one who should be worried," she said, her voice steady. "Not me." Feeling cornered and betrayed, Olivia ventured to the guest house again the following day, not to confront, but to observe. She watched as Cassie sauntered out to receive a package from a courier. Laughing into her phone, she looked like she didn't have a care in the world. She was comfortable in the environment one Mark had effectively stolen from Olivia. Suddenly, Cassie noticed Olivia watching from a distance. Their eyes locked. Instead of sneaking away, Cassie strode over, a self-assured smirk playing on her lips. "How's the baby?" she asked, her tone casual, almost mocking. Olivia stiffened. "Do you really care?" Cassie shrugged. "I care about Mark and his future, which now involves that child, obviously. So yes, in a way. There was a time Olivia might have confronted a mistress with tears, heartbreak, and anger. But she'd realized these theatrics would only feed Cassie's arrogance. Instead, she clenched her jaw and said, "Your father must be a powerful man for you to push Mark around so easily." Cassie smiled enigmatically. "You catch on fast. My father's already invested in Mark's next project. He's impressed with Mark's ambition." "Ambition?" Olivia repeated, voice dripping with disdain. "You mean desperation?" "Call it what you like." Cassie tossed her hair. "In business, you do what you have to do. Mark understands that. I respect his drive." Olivia stared her down, thinking of Mark forging her signature, risking their future, all for a possible investment. "You might want to be careful," Olivia warned, "because Mark's not as in control as you think. This property you're prancing around in things aren't always what they seem." Cassie's smirk faltered, but she quickly replaced it with a laugh. "We'll see about that." She turned and walked back toward the guest house, leaving Olivia seething at the threshold. At the end of her rope, Olivia sought refuge in the company of her mother, Eleanor Rhodes. Eleanor was a strong-willed woman who had raised Olivia as a single parent for many years before marrying Olivia's stepfather. She arrived that weekend, suitcases in tow, determined to be with her daughter until the baby's birth. When Eleanor found out about Mark's affair, she was livid. She demanded an explanation from Mark, cornering him in his own living room. He tried to feign politeness, but Eleanor's stern gaze silenced him. "You're cheating on my daughter in her own home, after everything she's done for you." Eleanor's voice shook with fury. Mark opened his mouth, but Eleanor cut him off. "I don't want your excuses. Just know that I'm here now, and you won't bully my daughter or my future grandchild." She turned to the staircase, leaving Mark speechless. Despite her heartbreak, Olivia felt gratitude for her mother's presence. She needed someone else on her side in the house. The nights were calmer with her mother there, and though Mark avoided them both, Olivia felt safer. She even confided in her mother about transferring the deed into her name, a revelation that made Eleanor's eyes brim with proud tears. "That was brave, my dear," Eleanor whispered, hugging her. "You're protecting the child, and I support you wholeheartedly." As Olivia navigated the final weeks of her pregnancy, an unexpected twist disrupted everything. Cassie's father, Philip Brooks, abruptly withdrew his investment offer. Mark discovered the news in a tense phone call that echoed through the house. Olivia listened from around the corner as Mark's voice escalated to shouts. "Wait! You can't just back out now. The project is halfway." Mark fumed before slamming the phone down. Moments later, he stormed out of the office, nearly colliding with Olivia in the hallway. His eyes were wild, furious. "Are you happy now?" he spat. Cassie's father pulled out. Something about rethinking his portfolio. The company's sinking. Despite everything, Olivia felt a pang of sympathy overshadowed by her mounting anger. "Your mistress lost her bargaining chip," he glared. "Don't call her that. I did all of this for us." "For us," Olivia echoed, voice cracking. "Don't pin your greed on me. You thought you could trade loyalty for money. And where did that leave you?" He stared at her, shoulders heaving, but said nothing. With a final disgusted shake of her head, Olivia walked away. The following weeks were a whirlwind of bad news for Mark. Clients withdrew. Investors demanded their capital back. Investigations by the company's board intensified. In hushed conversations, Daniel Reeves mentioned that the board was prepared to vote Mark out as CEO if the allegations proved true. Cassie was not immune to the fallout. Her father's decision to withdraw left her grasping at straws, trying to salvage her relationship with Mark and possibly cling to the security she once enjoyed. But Mark, now cornered, became irritable even with her. Their mutual obsession had turned sour once the money well began drying up. Meanwhile, Olivia focused on her own well-being. Her mother helped with prenatal care, while John Davis continued to assure her that the deed was safe in her name. "Mark has no idea," John said. "He's too busy dealing with the collapsing business to suspect you've made such a move." Each night, Olivia tried to find solace, reminding herself that she was close to delivering her baby. Yet the house was still a war zone. Mark and Cassie fought constantly, their raised voices echoing from the guest house. Olivia's mother watched them with disdain, refusing to speak to Mark unless it was absolutely necessary. Late one night, Olivia was awakened by urgent knocking at the back door. She eased out of bed, noticing her mother was also awake, and together they crept toward the source of the noise. Olivia unlocked the door to find Cassie standing in the porch light, eyes red with tears. She looked disheveled, different from her usual polished self. "What do you want?" Olivia demanded, arms folded protectively over her belly. Cassie's lip quivered. "Please, I need to talk to you." Eleanor stepped forward, glaring at Cassie. "She doesn't need any more stress, young lady. Get out of here." Cassie shook her head. "It's important. I swear." Olivia hesitated. Something about Cassie's demeanor suggested genuine distress. She signaled her mother to stand aside. "You have 5 minutes." Cassie exhaled shakily. "Mark's changed. He's become paranoid, furious all the time. He threatened me tonight, said he'd ruin me if I talked to anyone about his business deals. I think he's losing his mind." Olivia tightened her grip on the doorknob. "So, now you want my sympathy?" Cassie's gaze flicked to Olivia's protruding abdomen. "I've done terrible things. I hurt you, I know that. But Mark, he's capable of worse." Eleanor interjected, voice razor sharp. "You brought this on yourself, dear. If you're in danger, call the police." Tears slid down Cassie's cheeks. "I can't go to the police. I forged documents, too. If Mark goes down, I go down. I need help." "If you have any influence over him?" Olivia laughed bitterly. "Influence. He's my husband, but he doesn't listen to anyone. You made your bed, Cassie. Now lie in it." She started to close the door, but Cassie placed a frantic hand on it. "Wait, I can help you. I have emails, voice recordings, proof that Mark forged your signature and used your name on deals. If you ever need leverage against him, I can give it to you." A cold chill swept over Olivia. "Why would you do that?" Cassie's tear-filled eyes held desperation. "Because if Mark's going down, I don't want to go down alone. And if I can prove I was coerced, maybe I won't face charges. Please." Olivia paused, her mind racing. She didn't trust Cassie, but the idea of having tangible proof against Mark was powerful. Before she could respond, Eleanor stepped in, voice firm. "We'll consider it. Leave now before you upset Olivia further." Cassie nodded, wiping her eyes. She took a shaky breath. "Please, I'll be in the guest house. If you want the evidence, come get it." Olivia's pregnancy reached its climax on a stormy night. Rain pelted the windows, thunder rolling across the sky. She was in bed, drifting in and out of restless sleep, when a sharp pain shot through her abdomen. Gasping, she clutched her belly, feeling a wave of panic. The contractions were coming earlier than expected. She called for her mother, who rushed in, eyes wide with concern. "We need to get to the hospital," Eleanor said, helping Olivia stand. They gathered her overnight bag and carefully navigated the stairs. Mark was nowhere to be seen. Lightning illuminated the hallway as they hurried outside. Through the window, Olivia noticed a light glowing in the guest house. She thought she saw Mark's silhouette. It was too late to alert him. She needed immediate medical attention. At the hospital, the contractions intensified. Nurses and doctors rushed around Olivia, hooking her up to monitors. Her mind spun. She was terrified but also determined. She wanted her baby to enter the world safely, free from the chaos that had consumed her life for the past few months. Eleanor squeezed her daughter's hand as the hours dragged on. Near dawn, Olivia gave birth to a baby girl, a tiny, precious soul who arrived crying robustly as though declaring her strength from the start. After the birth, while Olivia rested, Mark finally appeared at the hospital. Eleanor eyed him with contempt, but Olivia was too exhausted to argue. He approached the hospital bed, tentatively glancing at the infant in Olivia's arms. She's beautiful," he whispered, sounding genuinely emotional for the first time in months. Olivia looked at him, tears slipping from her eyes. She managed. "But you haven't earned the right to call her yours, Mark. Not yet." He swallowed hard. "I'm sorry for everything. I want to fix this." A wave of sorrow swept over Olivia. She wanted to believe him, but trust had been shattered beyond immediate repair. "We'll talk later. I need to rest." For the next few days, Mark stayed nearby, occasionally checking on mother and child. Cassie didn't show up at the hospital, which was a relief to Olivia. Her maternal instincts kicked into high gear. Her daughter's needs eclipsed everything else. She would do anything to ensure the baby was protected from the turmoil that had engulfed their home. Discharged from the hospital, Olivia returned with her newborn to a house that felt foreign. Her mother remained by her side, but Mark insisted on carrying the baby's car seat into the house. As they entered, Cassie appeared at the top of the staircase, looking uneasy. Mark's eyes darted from Olivia to Cassie. "Cass, not now." Cassie stepped back as if stung. She disappeared into the guest house soon after giving them space, but the tension was palpable. Days turned into a careful dance. Mark tried to play the doting father, changing diapers and rocking the baby to sleep. But he also vanished for long hours, presumably to salvage what remained of his business. Olivia, exhausted from late-night feedings, found herself too drained to keep constant tabs on him. Meanwhile, Cassie laid low, no longer parading around. Perhaps she realized her presence was less tenable with a newborn in the house. But the uneasy truce was bound to crack. A week after Olivia's return from the hospital, Cassie slipped an envelope under Olivia's bedroom door. Inside were USB drives and printouts of emails implicating Mark in various financial misdeeds, including documents with forged signatures under Olivia's name. A note was attached. "I have backups. If Mark tries anything, I'll testify that he coerced me. Do what's best for you." Despite her loathing for Cassie, Olivia felt a surge of gratitude for the evidence. She read through the emails in disbelief, seeing clear instructions from Mark on how to falsify records. Cassie was complicit, but following Mark's lead. Olivia carefully locked the envelope away in a safe place. Now she possessed a triple shield: the property deed, the evidence of Mark's financial crimes, and her new role as a mother, which granted her a certain moral and legal advantage. The question was, how would she use it? That evening, Mark returned home late, reeking of whiskey. He stumbled into the living room, slumping onto the couch. Olivia, who was rocking the baby, decided the time had come to reveal the truth. She handed the sleeping infant to her mother and guided Mark to the dining table. "We need to talk about our future," she said, voice steady. He groaned, rubbing his temples. "Can this wait? I've had a day from hell." "Did your board vote you out?" Olivia asked pointedly. Mark's surprised glance told her she'd guessed correctly. They did. "So what's next?" He shrugged bitterly. "I'll figure something out. I always do." Silence stretched between them for a long moment. Then Olivia slid a folder across the table. "You might want to take a look." "What's this?" he muttered, flipping it open. His eyes widened in disbelief at the documents. "You transferred the deed to yourself." "Yes," she said, her voice calm. "I'm the sole owner now. I did it to protect our child and myself." Mark stared, anger flushing his face. "You had no right. I had every right. Especially after all you've done. You lied, cheated, and endangered our finances. You refused to remove your mistress from our property. You left me no choice." He stood abruptly, slamming a fist on the table. "You think you can just steal what's mine?" Trembling inside, Olivia forced herself to remain outwardly composed. "Steal? After you invited Cassie to live here, forging my signature on business documents, and nearly destroyed our future with your selfishness. This is my safeguard." He paced the length of the room, fury emanating from him like heat waves. Finally, he turned to her, voice trembling with anger. "What do you want?" She let out a shaky breath. "I want you out. Cassie, too." He stared at her as if she'd grown horns. "You can't be serious. It's my name on the deed." "I'm serious. You can't stay here anymore, not unless you're ready to come clean, fix your legal issues, and cut off Cassie for good." Mark's pride flared. "You have no idea how complicated this is. I need time. I can't just walk away from Cassie. She could take me down with her." Olivia's mind flashed to the envelope Cassie had given her. "So be it," she said. "If you can't fix this, leave." Mark stormed out the front door, slamming it behind him. Olivia listened to the sound of his car screeching away into the night, her heart heavy. She knew the confrontation was far from over, but for once she felt a strange sense of relief. As soon as Mark left, Olivia marched to the guest house, her mother trailing behind for support. Cassie opened the door, relief spreading across her face as she saw Olivia. "Is he gone?" Cassie asked warily. "For now," Olivia replied. She surveyed the small living area. Cassie's belongings were still strewn about: designer shoes, handbags, and clothes that probably cost a fortune. "You need to go too." Cassie swallowed. "Where am I supposed to go? I have no money, no job." "That's not my concern," Olivia said firmly. "I appreciate the evidence you gave me, but it doesn't change what happened. You played a part in destroying my marriage." "Pack your bags." Tears brimmed in Cassie's eyes. She nodded slowly, looking defeated. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "For everything." Eleanor stepped forward, crossing her arms. "Don't forget that apology when you walk away." Cassie bowed her head, gathering her belongings in haste. Within an hour she was gone, lugging suitcases to a taxi that idled at the curb. Olivia watched from the doorstep, feeling a swirl of conflicting emotions: vindication, sorrow, and relief. The mistress was finally out, but the scars she left behind might never fully heal. Mark didn't return that night, or the next. Olivia learned through Daniel Reeves that Mark was dealing with the fallout of his failed investments and legal troubles. The board had voted him out as CEO, and the company was cooperating with an external audit that might lead to criminal charges. Meanwhile, Cassie's father cut off communications with Mark entirely. Cassie herself sent Olivia a single text: "Thank you for not pressing charges against me." Olivia didn't respond. In the ensuing weeks, the house felt emptier, but calmer. Olivia's mother stayed, helping with the baby's feedings, laundry, and emotional support. Despite everything, Olivia felt an odd blend of heartbreak and peace. She yearned for a stable family for her daughter, but Mark's toxic presence had grown unbearable. A month later, Mark appeared on the doorstep one evening, head bowed. His clothing was disheveled and dark circles shadowed his eyes. Eleanor nearly shut the door on him, but Olivia asked her mother to let him in. Curiosity and a vestige of compassion compelled her to listen. He stood in the foyer, eyes glancing nervously at the baby in Olivia's arms. "Can we talk?" he asked softly. She nodded toward the living room. Once seated, Mark's gaze fell to the floor. "I've messed up," he began quietly. "I lost the company. I lost the respect of everyone. And I lost you." Olivia remained silent, gently rocking the baby, who began to fuss. Mark continued, his voice thick with regret. "I'm probably going to face legal consequences. Daniel told me the audit is almost done. I just want to apologize for everything. If I have to turn myself in, I will. But I'd like to ask if there's any chance we can fix this." A bitter taste filled Olivia's mouth. "Fix this?" she repeated, shifting the baby to her other arm. "After the betrayal, the lies, the mistress. You think a few apologies will fix that?" He shook his head, tears welling up. "No, but I'm willing to try for as long as it takes. For our daughter." Olivia stared at him, memories flooding back, both good and terrible. She remembered the man she first married, the man who danced with her in the moonlight on their honeymoon, who spun big dreams about a family. But she also recalled the scathing words, the nights spent alone, the heartbreak. "I don't know if I can ever trust you again," she whispered. Mark nodded, voice cracking. "I understand." Eleanor, who had been standing watch in the hallway, cleared her throat. "Olivia, you don't owe him anything. Don't let him manipulate you." Mark lowered his head. "I'm not trying to manipulate. I'll sign whatever you want: post-nuptial agreements, custody papers. I just want a chance." Olivia was torn. She felt no love for him in that moment, only a sense of duty to their child and a flicker of pity. "You'll have to face the legal consequences, Mark. That might mean prison time. He nodded, face resolute. I know. She let out a long breath. Then start by confessing everything to the authorities. Clear my name. Stop using it for your deals. I have evidence. I know, he interjected, his voice trembling. Cassie told me you had the proof. I'm ready to face it. Silence enveloped them, thick with unsaid emotions. Finally, Olivia said, If you're truly serious about changing, I'm willing to see you follow through. For our daughter's sake. But I'm not making any promises about our marriage. Mark let out a shuddering breath of relief. Thank you, he whispered, tears streaking his cheeks. Over the next several weeks, Mark met with the auditors, the board, and eventually law enforcement. He confessed to forging documents and siphoning funds, though he tried to shift some blame to Cassie's manipulations. Cassie, for her part, cooperated with the investigation to avoid heavier charges. In a plea deal, Mark agreed to repay a significant portion of stolen funds and face the possibility of a reduced sentence. Olivia stood aside, focusing on her baby's well-being. She had no intention of letting Mark off easy. She allowed him supervised visits with their daughter, always in the presence of her mother or a trusted friend. The question of whether they could salvage the marriage loomed large. Olivia placed the safety of her child above all else. She told Mark firmly, Until I see lasting change in you, I won't consider reconciliation. He accepted it, determined to rebuild from the ashes. 3 months later, Mark's sentencing hearing arrived. The entire scandal had been hushed by the company's board to protect the brand, so the trial was relatively discreet. Mark received probation with mandatory restitution payments, narrowly avoiding jail time, thanks to his confession and cooperation. Outside the courthouse, Mark found Olivia waiting in the corridor, their baby sleeping in a stroller. He approached cautiously, waiting for some sign of how she felt. She looked at him with a mix of relief and lingering pain. I'm glad you're not going to prison. Our daughter deserves a father if you can be one. He swallowed, voice trembling. I'll do anything to prove I'm worthy of that. Olivia sighed. Then start by being honest every day. Prove it to me through your actions. He nodded solemnly. I will. Returning home that night, Olivia's mother discreetly left them alone to talk. The baby had just drifted off to sleep. They sat in the living room where the tension of the past year still seemed to permeate the walls. Mark's eyes were downcast. Do you want me to leave now that everything's settled legally? Olivia glanced around, recalling every painful memory etched into the house. This home is mine, she said firmly. I have every right to ask you to go. But if you want to stay temporarily under strict boundaries, you can. I'll consider letting you prove you've changed. A flicker of hope crossed his features. Thank you, he said, voice soft. I won't let you down. Thus began a tentative new chapter. Mark moved back into the main house, but he slept in a spare bedroom far from Olivia's. She set rigid rules: no more secrets, full transparency about finances, and respectful behavior at all times. Mark agreed. Gradually, he found a modest job with another real estate firm, not a leadership role, but an honest start. Over the following months, Mark attended therapy to address his compulsive need for validation and his self-destructive business tactics. He also committed to couples therapy with Olivia, though she maintained emotional distance. Each session, they unpacked the layers of betrayal, anger, and heartbreak. For Olivia, the possibility of love felt distant. She questioned whether too much damage had been done. But every time she saw Mark patiently rock their daughter to sleep or watched him humbly accept responsibility for his mistakes, a small bud of compassion unfurled within her. Eleanor eventually returned to her own home, leaving the couple alone to navigate their fragile truce. Life found a new rhythm with Mark, striving to balance redemption and fatherhood, while Olivia guarded her heart. 1 year after giving birth, Olivia stood barefoot on the back porch, warm ceramic mug in hand, letting the morning sun spill over her like a quiet benediction. The sky was streaked with soft pastels, amber peach, and hints of lilac, as if even the universe had exhaled a sigh of peace after a storm. Her eyes wandered across the yard to the guest house. The place that once housed betrayal now stood silent, its windows reflecting the golden light. She took a slow sip of her tea, remembering the turmoil that had once lived within those walls. Cassie's laughter, Mark's denials, her own pounding heart, as she confronted them both. The night she cried herself to sleep, one hand on her belly, the other clutching the deed she'd secretly transferred to her name. It had been a war zone of emotions. And yet here she was still standing still, healing. A sudden burst of giggles pulled her attention. Their daughter, now toddling on sturdy little legs, chased a butterfly across the lawn, her curls bouncing, her laughter echoing like music. Olivia smiled, feeling her heart warm with a gratitude she hadn't thought possible a year ago. Mark stepped onto the porch, careful not to startle her. He wore a simple flannel shirt, sleeves rolled up, a mug of black coffee in his hand. His movements were slower these days, more deliberate. No longer the high-powered executive commanding boardrooms, he now carried the humility of a man who had lost much and was slowly trying to rebuild something honest from the rubble. His eyes followed hers toward the guest house. "It's quiet in there now," he said gently. Olivia nodded but didn't speak. After a pause, he added, "I was thinking, maybe we could renovate it. Make it into something useful." She turned to him, arching a brow. "Useful for who?" He met her gaze, steady. "For you. For your business. You've been consulting out of the kitchen, taking calls with the baby crying in the background. You deserve a space that's your own." The words caught her off guard. Not because they were grand or poetic, Mark had long ago lost his flair for charm, but because they were rooted in quiet acknowledgement. He saw her, truly saw her, not as a burden or an accessory to his ambitions, but as a woman carving her own path. "I don't need charity," she said softly. "It's not charity," he replied. "It's support. Real support. The kind I should have given you years ago." She looked back at the guest house, imagining a studio bathed in sunlight, a bookshelf lined with business manuals, a whiteboard of goals and ideas. A room where her voice, no longer silenced, would be the only one that mattered. A symbol that the space, once claimed by a mistress, now belonged to its rightful queen. For the first time, the idea didn't fill her with bitterness. It felt like possibility. Maybe, she said, her voice quiet but resolute. Maybe it's time that place meant something new. Their daughter squealed with delight as the butterfly flitted close to her outstretched hand. Olivia smiled, her gaze filled with a kind of hope she hadn't let herself feel in a long while. Not every wound had healed, not every question had an answer, but in that moment, beneath a golden sky and beside the guest house that had once been her greatest humiliation, Olivia felt something she hadn't in years. Power, peace, and the whisper of a new beginning. Months passed and life continued in a cautious state of reconstruction. Mark never fully regained his former business glory, but he worked steadily and honestly. The financial restitution weighed heavily on him, but he managed to pay what he owed. Cassie disappeared from their lives, a ghost of a painful past. Olivia thrived in her newly renovated guest house office, expanding her consulting business. She discovered a sense of empowerment she once feared she'd never reclaim. The baby grew into a lively toddler, bounding across the manicured lawn. Every once in a while, Mark and Olivia shared a quiet moment, a laugh over the baby's antics, a recollection of better times, moments that hinted at healing. It wasn't a fairy tale conclusion, but life seldom is. It was a real messy, fragile attempt at forgiveness and growth. Whether they would remain together or ultimately part ways was a story still unfolding. But one thing was certain: Olivia had taken control of her life and her child's future. She had proven that betrayal could be met with courage, heartbreak with resilience. The house and its guest house now stood as symbols of her resolve. The deed was in her name, ensuring she would never again be at the mercy of another's duplicity. Yet she remained open to the possibility that people can learn from their mistakes. Time alone would tell if Mark could truly redeem himself. For now, Olivia and her daughter had what they needed: security, love, and a chance to write their own ending. Sometimes the greatest strength emerges when life feels most shattered. Olivia's journey proved that heartbreak, betrayal, and even the bold audacity of a mistress in the guest house could not extinguish a woman's determination. She secured her home, protected her child, and found her own courage amid the chaos. Mark's story is one of redemption sought and forgiveness earned. But trust is not rebuilt overnight. Whether their family remains intact or branches off in new directions is a path only time will reveal. If this story moved you, if Olivia's resilience, her mother's fierce support, and the startling revelations kept you hooked, please show your support. Like this video, share it with friends who might draw inspiration, and subscribe to stay updated on more real-life dramas and compelling stories. Your engagement fuels new stories that remind us all every ending births a fresh beginning.